Welcome to Jackal DIY and Tech. In today's video, I'll try to fix the power supply that is causing this issue with the amp for the speakers. So when the amp is off, you can see the light blinking, meaning that the power is being provided to the amp. And when I turn it on, I get this popping sound, which is a lot louder than what you can actually hear. Welcome to Jackal DIY and Tech. In today's video, I will attempt to fix this power supply, which is not for a laptop, but rather it is for this Dock Audio G5 speaker amplifier. Now, what is the issue that I have with the power supply? Basically, the power supply does work 95% of the time. When it does not, it cuts out. I do have a blue LED here, and when it does cut out, the LED flashes, and this can happen once, or it can be a continuous loop until the power stabilizes again. Now, why this happens, I have no idea. But what I'll do today is a simple fix that at least I can attempt. Now I managed to open this without, well, some issues, but mostly intact. I just broken off the middle piece, which this clamps right in. So it has 3 clamps on each side. I somehow managed to open this, and what this has inside, so we have 2 heatsinks. I'm comfortable touching this side, which is the low side. I'm not really comfortable touching this side with the big capacitor. And I don't know if it is already discharged. And because I don't know that, what I'll do is I'll take a hefty screwdriver and make sure that you have a handle that is not made of steel. So you have some isolation, and basically what you do is short the 2 contacts. So if there is some electricity still inside the big cap, you will get a big flash. So also close your eyes, maybe look away when doing this. So nothing happened there. I will also just touch the contacts from this side. So no flashing. I'm a little bit safer, but I still won't be touching the cap. So what is the issue? Usually with the power supplies, you could have the 2 smaller caps that could bulge. These ones look okay, as does the big one and the small one inside. And the other components also don't look bad. So the only thing that I can do with my skill set, besides replacing the caps that I don't have on hand, is to maybe solder all of the contacts. And I see they also have traces, and this trace looks a little bit worse than the rest of them. If I can zoom in a little bit more. So I will go over each pin, and this trace looks a little bit, well, it doesn't look very nice compared to the rest of the traces, so I'm hoping that's the issue. If it is, that will be super nice. So any of these caps, the 2 caps, as you can see, they look fine, they don't bulge. This cap, the big one, also does not seem to be bulging. The resistor also looks nice, but maybe this diode in between the cap and the plug, or maybe this one that's on the aluminum, or this one from this side. Maybe those are the only components that I would be able to replace. All of the other ones are just too small, and I have no idea what I would do with them. And I just remembered I didn't really describe the issue with the power supply. Clearly, it's not that the LED is not constantly on, that's not the problem. I don't mind the LED flashing. But when the power cuts out and comes back in, then the speakers pop really loudly as if they were on full blast. I don't listen to speakers at full loudness, so that's kind of a jump scare, and if it happens multiple consecutive times, it gets really annoying. So I do hope I managed to fix this. I'll put this to maximum, no idea how long it takes, but it is 450 degrees, so it should also melt this pre-applied tin. Since this pad is glued in place, I doubt there is any solder beneath it, and also why I'm soldering the pins is maybe there's some kind of a cold solder, which is not really visible, but with time it can happen that detaches from the pads. I'm not really sure if the pads should be popping. Maybe I have the heat on too high, so I'm just destroying the pads. I guess I'll see once I plug it in what will happen. And I think that should be it. Now the only downside with testing if this works is that the problem was not predictable. Sometimes it took a day, sometimes it can happen within maybe half an hour. So I'll put this back together. First just plug it in into an outlet, see if it blows up, hopefully it does not. And then I will connect it to the amplifier and see if it turns on. So I'll put this back into a casing. Now I'll put the cover on slightly, and that's because if this still works but has an issue, I'll then be able to simply take this off and do the possible fix. So I found the plug, let me connect it in. Awesome, it didn't blow up. So you do see the blue LED. So at the moment, I don't know what you saw. Basically, I plug this back in. You do see the blue LED indicating that, well, at least the LED has some power. In the output, I have nothing. Also, when I tested just these contacts, the black and the red, also OL, so nothing should be present on this adapter. I do have some faint readings occasionally, but let me sacrifice this LED. If we'll have a bright flash, then it means that we do have something. So yeah, there was a bright flash. Of course the LED is now dead, because this is supposed to be 19 volts. So there is some power coming out of it, but I just don't know why I can't measure it. If I put this to 20 volts DC, so 20 volts DC, the outside is the negative and the inside is positive, and we should see 19 volts or more. So black on the outside, and even if it was on the inside, I would just see a negative value. For a moment we saw 9-10 volts, but then it goes to OL. Maybe it's expecting something to flow back, I don't know. Maybe that could be it. 13 volts, 15 volts, 16 volts, 5 volts, and we got up to 19 volts, but immediately it goes back down to 0. So I would expect this to have a continuous DC output, but now I don't know. I will still connect this power supply to the amp and see what I get, if anything. Otherwise it means that I've basically burned through some of the components or through the traces. So you can see one big change. The capacitor, I found one that had the same capacitance and voltage rating, so 100 microfarads and 450 volts. Though the capacitor is bigger, I could fit it in. I'll just have to widen this a little bit, but when I was testing it out, it has worked fine for 2 days, but now the problem is back. Now, is the issue with this capacitor? I don't really know, and I can't say that it is not, because this capacitor is old, because it was a part of another power supply. But what I can do with the parts that I have available is to replace this IC. Supposedly this IC controls how this behaves. I do have the same one on this board. This was also a power supply or a battery charger, and the IC is 817C. So I will take off this one and replace it on this board. I just use the knife to pull out the components, just like that. The component is out. Now how you position it does matter. I don't think you'll be able to see it. I think you should see it. So the dot on the top right, that is pin number 1. So you have to position it in the same way on the other board. So do make sure you actually remember how it was positioned. So on the bottom right is the pin number 1, the same way as I have positioned it right here. So I should not have any issues putting that in, but I do have to desolder this one. And I have noticed that when I went over all of this mess, this pin is a little bit iffy. So maybe it is the IC or my soldering skills were not the best. Yeah, this pad, the bottom one, is just gone. And maybe that is what caused the issues, bad contacts. In any case, I will replace it with this one. Actually, now that I've put it in, both of these pads are pretty much gone. And probably the pads on this side as well. Definitely not what I wanted to see. So I think what I'll do is scrape some of the protective film to expose the copper and simply connect the pins to this. So that should be good. Now I'll just make a bunch of blobs to connect the pads or connect the legs to the new pads. Well, this is definitely not the best soldering job I ever done, but I think it's good enough for a quick test. And let's see if we'll have any magic smoke, and if not, if the LED will turn on. So no smoke, the LED is on, so is that a good sign? So I guess I will just disconnect this as is and put it back to my amp and see if it works, and if it does, for how long. And if it passes the test, then I will do something about this big cap. Just a quick test. When I turn the amp on, no problems right now, so I guess I'll turn on some music. And just so you know, I have never powered up this amp and put it to full blast. but maybe I can do so with no music coming in. So I don't know if you heard that, but there was some kind of static or noise coming in, but hopefully that's all there was. So this will be my setup. I will have to test out the power supply. So what you see inside there, it's wrapped in plastic bag because it does smell a little bit, but I guess that is to be expected from electronic components. So good news, I managed to fix this power supply. The first thing that I've done is change this cap. It's a lot bigger one than the previous one. I still have the previous one, which is right here, but I don't want to use it, mainly because, well, this one does work, and if it works, leave it alone. Now the first thing that I'll do is widen this up a little bit so it fits inside, and it should still be enough space for the casing to fit this PCB. And the second thing that I've changed is this tiny IC. Now the job doesn't look the best, mainly because all of the pads came off, but it does work, so I will leave it as is. And as you can see, this pad 2 is just going off. So I would say what was wrong with this power supply was maybe not the components, but definitely the PCB, because everything is just detaching. So I would have to make a new PCB, though because it does have the SMDs, I can't really do that. In any case, let me fill this back in. I will use some pliers, and because the contacts might touch, the heatsink might, I will use some rubber as well to isolate that. Since I don't think I'll ever need this big of a heat shrink tube, I'll just use one of these ones. So this is definitely less than ideal. I did manage to just jam it in, but let's see if it actually still fits. And before I close it, let me just test it. But now I just have to close this somehow. And there we go, PSU fixed. A job well done. You can try this yourself, just make sure that you take every precaution, because high voltage, like this one, 450 volts, this is a no-no. So make sure to properly discharge the capacitor, so that does not mean that you take something metal like this and bridge the two contacts, like I have done with a screwdriver. That is a very, what's it called, redneck kind of method. It does work, but again, you do have to be very careful. But a safer method is to simply connect the power supply to, in this case, speakers until they drain all of the electricity from the capacitor. But if you have never done anything with electricity, I suggest you stay away and do something with low voltage, something with maybe Arduinos and LEDs. That will definitely be a lot safer and also a lot more fun, and at the end of the day you will have a project that is working. That's it for this video, and we'll do something else in the next one.